Hi, everybody. Welcome to the live tonight. I'm so excited to see you. It's been a few days and I have missed all of you. So, hello to all of you on Facebook. Hello to all of you on YouTube. Make sure that you comment below. Let me know where you're watching from, your name, and the city and state you're watching from so I can say hi. But I'm excited about tonight's live because we're going to talk about how to make your adoption profile stand out. And I have a special guest coming on live with me tonight. Her name is Amanda Koval. I'm going to introduce her here in just a minute. But as you guys know, your adoption profile is really important. If you want to adopt a newborn baby, you're going to need to have an adoption profile. And as you guys have heard me say so many times, there's so many different ways that you can adopt a newborn baby. But whichever one of those ways that you choose, you're going to have to get your adoption profile done. Now, it's kind of been, a lot of families are preferring to do. To start self-matching now because they don't want to pay the cost of an agency or consultant. And even if you are wanting to self-match, you still need an adoption profile. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about how to make your adoption profile stand out. So I'm going to bring on Amanda Koval here. She's going to be talking with you guys. Amanda Koval is an adoptive mom, and she has such a heart to help other hopeful adoptive parents with their adoption profile. She's amazing. She's helped so many families with their adoption profile. That's really helped them to connect with expectant moms. So tonight she's going to tell you 3 things that you need to do to make your adoption profile stand out. So I'm going to bring her on stage here. Hi, Amanda. How are
Hi.
you?
Hi. Thank you so much for having me tonight. I really appreciate it.
Yes, it's so good to see you.
You
So,
too.
okay, there you go. You're back. You froze there for a minute, but I think
Oh,
we're good now. But
okay.
yeah. So again, welcome everybody. Make sure that you are posting your name and the city and state you're watching from in the comments below so we can say hello. And post your questions as we're going through the live today. And we'll be happy to answer after we kind of go over, how to make your adoption profile stand out. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lacrice, and thanks for being on here tonight. What I do is I provide an unbiased, streamlined source of everything that you need to know before, during, and after your adoption. And I also help guide families through that process based on my years of experience as an adoption lawyer and helping hundreds of families go through the process. So if you've never met me before, you've never watched any of my videos, hi, that's what I do. And again, here's Amanda here. She's an adoptive mom, and she just has such a heart and a passion to help hopeful adoptive parents just have their adoption profile stand out and really help them connect with expectant mothers who are looking for adoptive families. So, again, welcome, Amanda. I'm so glad that you're here with me tonight.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm
Yeah.
really excited to be here, and I'm excited to help families learn just how important their adoption profiles really are, because it really is the kind of the last step before you say hello to the next chapter of your life. And not
Mhm.
having a profile that helps you stand out or that really helps you make an emotional connection can really make it longer before you get chosen as a hopeful adoptive family. So thank you for allowing me to come and share this with your audience tonight.
Yeah, yeah. Well, can you tell everyone how you even got into helping families with their adoption profile specifically?
Yeah, for sure. So, as you mentioned, I am an adoptive mom of two. I have an 8-year old and recently last week turned 6-year old.
Wow.
And we adopted them through private domestic adoption here in the United States. And I learned a lot of lessons along the way, some good, some bad. And I learned that there was a whole nother kind of side and world with the adoption world that I just didn't even know about. And I had some friends, as typically happens, right? I didn't really know anybody that adopted. And then I met people and then met people and met people, right? And it just kind of kept spreading from there. But my corporate day job is I work in marketing and I have a bachelor's and master's in journalism. So storytelling is kind of my gig. And that is what I'm trained to do. And
Yeah.
we matched really quickly in our adoptions. And then I had friends say, oh, so and so is trying to adopt. Can you help them? And it just kind of grew from that into a blog, into a podcast, into a YouTube, and now I've actually helped over 1,000 families form
Wow.
their family through adoption.
That's
Um,
amazing.
it is just such a blessing. It's amazing to
Yeah.
me. I'm a firm believer that there are children, that need homes, and that there are families that want to adopt, and it's just about bringing the two together in the right ways.
Yeah, I find it so amazing that your adoption profile is so important. I think a lot of families they're just trying to figure out like, what do I even need to do to get started, right?
Yeah.
And But after that, after they start working with an adoption professional, they don't realize how important that adoption profile is. That can seem like a whole other thing that you have to do. Like, how do you pick the pictures that you have to put in there? What do you say? How do you talk about yourself in a couple of pages? How do you tell somebody about your whole life or try to get them to get a glimpse into your life and who you authentically are in just a couple of pages? And so I'm fascinated about how, I mean, just your skills, you're going to use your skills to help families to communicate that in such a and make an emotional connection with an expectant mom before she ever even meets them in person, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So I can't wait for everybody to hear tonight about three things that you want to tell them about what they need to do to make their adoption profile stand out. So what's the first one that you would tell families to do?
Yeah, the very first thing is you've got to tell a really clear story. So, to your point, you've got a limited space and a limited amount of time to really tell people about you. But I often hear my clients refer to this as like the most very important first date you'll ever have. And so you want to tell them everything, right? In case there's like one little thing that, might spark some interest. But in doing that and really trying to cram all the information about your family into those couple of pages or that, minute or so long video, you actually end up confusing people more.
Mm,
And so it's about getting real clear about who you are as a family,
mhm.
what you like to do, so that you can begin to paint a picture of what this child's life will be like with you. It really comes down to kind of a little bit of an art and a science, which is probably my marketing background.
Yeah.
But having structure to what you're telling people actually helps their brains categorize that information in an easier fashion. And when it's easier to get to know you, then they get intrigued. They want to learn a little bit more about you, and they're willing and ready to lean in and get to know you a little bit more. So that
Yeah.
really is super important.
Yeah, tell your story in a clear fashion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what's the second thing that you would say um, to help families on how to make their adoption profile stand, especially those that are DIYers who want to do everything on their own without any help? I mean, I always recommend like get help because as much as you think you can learn everything, no one can learn how to do everything perfectly. And so it's always helpful to have somebody who knows what they're doing to help you with it. But for
Yeah.
those who are like, I want to do my dash and profile on my own, I don't want any help. What's the second nugget, piece of advice you would give them to help them make their adoption profile stand out?
So once you have that clear story, you want to then evolve into how can you tell it in a way that is going to make an emotional connection.
Mm,
And oftentimes people say, wait a minute, is this going to be manipulative to the audience? Like, are they going to, are we really trying to get them to do something that they're not into? And that's
mhm.
really not the intention at all. The intention is that, again, we just spark that curiosity one level deeper. So I'm going to give some real examples for our DIYers out there.
Yeah.
So maybe something that's really important to your family is faith. And maybe you want to talk about faith in your profile as something that is really important and that this child is going to grow up and have really a faith-based education or upbringing. So then
Mm,
when you're moving into the second step to make an emotional connection, you want to talk about why faith is so important. What type of structure and environment does faith provide to your family? And what
mhm.
does that show up and look like? And just in those few three examples that I gave you there, you could see how that could turn into maybe a paragraph in your profile, maybe 30 seconds to maybe 45 seconds into your adoption video, maybe a few social media posts. But they all revolve around this idea of faith. And so when you're talking about your family and you're giving those stories to help her really get to paint a picture of who you are, then it allows her to go, oh, these folks, faith is really important to them. And so it allows her brain again to categorize that information. Maybe it's the nerd in me, but I think about like this having basically like a filing cabinet in your brain. And it's like
Yeah.
you're opening the folder and putting these stories about your family into the faith folder. And that
Mm.
helps her go, okay, well, that's one of the things that's really important and helps them stand out.
Wow, that's really powerful.
Thank you.
Wow. Yeah, that's really powerful. So, of the 1,000 plus families that you've helped, have you seen like a common denominator maybe of how families tell their stories, or is it really just specific to that family?
So the like pillars, if you will, that they all use from like their the information about their family or content, if you're have a marketing brain as well, that is really unique to each individual family.
Mm,
It really kind of runs the gamut. And I'm also a nerd, and so I love research. So I oftentimes will catalog my families of like what were their core pillars of things that was important to their family, and do I see any variables that kind of overlap between those that get picked faster versus others. And there's really not. It really comes down to, can she picture the life that she wants for this child with this family? And
yeah.
how she can picture that is, it's really clear to know who you are based upon kind of the verticals of the stories that you're telling, and them all kind of lining up. And then that she really gets emotionally connected through the story, because you want to, when you're talking about that emotional connection, you want to dive a little bit deeper and
Mhm,
help her either see it or sense it or be able to
mhm,
read it, because everyone learns just slightly differently.
mhm,
And so when I'm working with my clients, we're working through that of how can we tell that story in a really immersive way that helps her feel like she's there, that she's standing in the church with you, singing in the choir on Sunday, right? And she really feels that. And she feels like what that means to this child and its future. And that becomes something that's important to her. And
yeah,
so when expectant families see that type of life showing up in the profile, they're like, that's it. That's what I
mhm,
want this child's life to be like. And
yeah.
so to me, that really is like the secret sauce behind, families getting picked.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen a lot of profiles in Facebook groups. There's Facebook groups where basically the only thing that the Facebook group is for adoptive families just to post their profiles. And
Yeah.
there's so many different profiles. And if I was an expectant mom, I would just not even be a part of that Facebook group because I mean, I'm not looking to place my baby for adoption, obviously, but still, just the amount of profiles that you see, I can't imagine as an expectant mom having to
Mhm.
look through so many profiles and then
Yeah.
try to make a decision about which one do I think, is going to be the best fit for my baby. So I
Mhm.
really like this approach of wanting to actually have an emotional connection with the expectant mother through your adoption profile. So you stand out of the crowd. You're not just another person say, hi, I'm Joe and Amy Smith from New York, and we would
Right.
love to adopt your baby. Cause that's like what everybody else is saying too. You're so brave as I mean, just off the top of my
Right.
head, this is what I've seen so much.
Yeah.
We are so proud of you and we're so brave for the decision that you've made. And
Yeah.
we promise you that we'll take good care of your child. Like I've seen that so much in adoption
That's right.
profiles that they all kind of start blending together. And it's like the only difference is the pictures.
Yeah. You're right.
I haven't seen one that stood out to me like the way that you're describing, which is wow. It just sounds great to be able to
Yeah.
read a profile like that would be amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
I spend a lot of time talking with expectant families. I think it's over 3,500 hours now or something like that, if I remember my tracker correctly.
yeah.
And I ask them what makes them pick a family versus another, and how did they come across them, and those
Wow.
types of things. And they talk a lot about showing up to those Facebook groups and just feeling completely overwhelmed. To your point, right?
Yeah.
That I had one lady. She was like, "I just see a sea of faces."
Yes.
Right? And she's like, they all seem perfectly lovely and,
Yeah.
warm and smiling and happy. And she was like, she said, I'm not necessarily connecting with any of them.
Exactly.
And so it is really tough to stand out. But the unique part about it is that every expectant family that I talk to, they pick someone for a different reason. And it was because that reason is what they were looking for. That's what sparked for
Right.
them.
Right.
So
Right.
telling clearly who you are in a very succinct fashion is really, really difficult. But
Yeah.
that's what helps you kind of rise to the top, because you stand out from that sea of just faces of everybody looking and feeling the same.
Right, right. Yeah. I like to stay away from those Facebook groups because I feel overwhelmed just
Yeah.
by looking at, I mean, you scroll and it's like profile after profile after profile after picture, and everybody's saying, hi, my name is, it's just,
Yeah.
it's just like, oh my gosh. Um, so yeah, I really haven't seen one that stands out and that kind of tells a
Yeah.
story the way that you're explaining it, which is, I think that's a disservice to so many adoptive families who they have beautiful adoption profiles and the pictures are beautiful and they're trying to connect with the expectant mother. But I think one of the reasons why some adoptive families may take so long, I mean, there's so many other reasons, but I think one of the reasons is the adoption profile just needs work. The
Yeah.
expectant mom is just not connecting with you. And I think, some families are so frustrated as they're waiting and waiting to be matched. And sometimes I think there's a disconnect between that. They're thinking we spent the money, they told us to just wait.
Yeah.
Well, I would say maybe don't just wait, maybe actually hire somebody to be able to help you with your adoption profile and make it stand out so you have the best chance of actually connecting with an expectant mother. Don't just leave it to the agency to do all the work and just assume that your adoption profile is amazing. Like really hire somebody who's experienced in adoption profiles who can help you get that story straight and make it in a way that it can connect with the expectant mother.
Yeah,
So
I absolutely agree. And I'll try to avoid bringing the soapbox out because I totally could on this topic. And
yeah,
it's actually my third tip, which is I find within my client base, those that actually share their profile match 2 times faster than those that like leave it up to chance, even when they're working with an agency. I
yeah,
have some clients, so I kind of have 2 groups of clients, if you will. One group of clients are, working with agencies and they kind of have this mindset of, I wrote the check, right? And it's their job to match me now. And
yeah,
it's to your point, it's not. It is not their job to match you. It's their job to present your profile, but it's not their job to match you necessarily. And a lot of them actually have kind of renewal fees that are built in. And so you could actually argue that they're disincentivized to match you quickly. Not all agencies are the same,
mhm,
right? And I'm not speaking ill of agencies, but
yeah,
it's really at the end of the day, this is your life and you are in the driver's seat of it. And you
right,
have to take consistent action. You can throw up your hand and say, oh, why me? Why is this never happening? Or you can say, you know what?
mm,
I'm going to put in the work and I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to just keep taking one step at a time. But the fact that I went back because I was just very curious because I was like, I just have this tranche of clients that are
mhm,
matching, in 6 months, 4 months, 7 months, like just and I'm like, what is
crazy,
the difference,
yeah,
right? Like, what
yeah,
are they doing that these others aren't doing?
right,
And so I just started, getting curious, right? And, calling them, texting them, like, hey, what are you doing? What's happening? And then I would go into those Facebook groups and I would see them sharing things over and over and over again. And I was like, oh, you're super active in the group, or
mhm,
oh, you're working with an agency, but you're also doing this. Like,
yeah,
that's what's going on.
yeah,
And so the more like proactive you are, the faster you're going to match because you just need that one connection. You
yeah,
need the friend of the friend, or the random person in the Facebook group, or the lady at the laundromat or the coffee shop, right, to come across your
yeah,
profile, and that sparks the connection. Then when you have a clear story that makes it easy to get to know you, then she's
right,
like, oh, right place, right time, right, is kind of what she's thinking. And you're
yeah,
thinking, oh, please let it be easy for her to get to know me, right? And want to call
right,
me.
yeah,
But you're totally right. You've got to take consistent action,
yeah.
whether or not you're self matching or working with an agency. If you want to match quickly, taking action day in and day out is what's ultimately going to help you bring your baby home faster.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think one of the reasons why maybe families don't do that is because some agencies, when you sign with them, they have a policy that they don't
Do
want you to be doing the work on your own. They
yeah,
want you to leave it all up to them, which I think is such a huge disservice to families
do.
to basically tell them like your fate is in our hands and you just
Mhm.
have to wait until we tell you that you're matched. I don't think anybody should work with an agency like that. But I think unfortunately some families, because they don't know any
That's
different
right.
or they don't know to read the policies or to ask those kinds of questions, they get stuck with an agency like that.
Yeah,
And then they realize
absolutely.
later on, like, oh, I can't share my profile anywhere. And now
Yep.
they're trying to get out of it. And now they're like, oh no, I just spent $10,000 here. I don't want to leave. And then they're stuck,
Right.
which stinks.
It
That's
does. It absolutely
true.
does. I was
Yeah.
one of those families. We worked
Oh
with one of
man.
those big agencies. And,
Yeah.
I work in marketing for a living, but I was so tired from our infertility journey. I
Yeah.
talked to a local adoption attorney, and in those days, he was like, it's either Craigslist or go to a big agency. And I was like, ooh, Craigslist feels scary. Let's go to an
Wow. Yeah,
agency, right?
seriously.
And it just shows what you don't know, right? When you're
Yeah.
starting out. And then, I see a line item in our contract around advertising and marketing. And because I work in marketing, I thought, well, I can buy whatever ad space, at a much more efficient rate. I
Yeah.
understand targeting, I understand audiences. Like,
Yeah.
they'll let me do this myself. And then I'm
Yeah.
like talking to the agency after we signed the contract, and they're like, no, no. And that's when I realized that our advertising budget was actually advertising their agency and not our profile.
Yep.
And I was just like, holy moly.
Yep.
Like, I could have done this ourselves for a whole lot cheaper.
Yeah.
Like, I could have invested that money into ads myself, and I could have gotten us, a
Yeah.
baby faster, right? But I mean,
Yeah.
listen, it all worked out in the end. My children are my children, and I absolutely, adore them. But that's when the light bulb began to go off on in my brain of like, there may be other paths to this than
Yeah.
what I'm doing now.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so crazy to me. I mean, and I tell my families too all the time, the reason why you see agencies pop up whenever you're researching adoption is because they're spending the most money on ads. It's
That's
not
right.
because they're the best professional to work with. It's just because they spend a lot of money on ads.
Right.
I mean, you think about it, the most ads you see, that's what you remember,
Yeah.
right? So there may be like 20 other amazing companies. And just
Mhm.
because you didn't see an ad on them, you have no idea they exist.
That's
And it
right.
doesn't mean that they're not there. It just means that they didn't have the money in the budget for ads like this other place did, you know?
Yeah.
And so I just find it so crazy. So that's one of the things I tell my families too is I'm not saying don't use an agency, but what I am saying is that make sure you do your homework so that you don't get stuck and end up losing thousands of dollars literally just
Yeah.
because you didn't know that some agencies may actually have you sign a contract saying that you will not advertise yourself. You probably don't want to work with an agency like that.
Yeah.
So just a heads up. But I was actually going to share a story because I had a family, Kinsey and her husband Matthew. So they came through my adoption success accelerator program. And I love their story so much because they were working with an agency for 2.5 years in Colorado. Two and
Yeah.
a half years. And they went nowhere. And by 2.5 years later, they were thinking, like, we don't want to just keep sitting here waiting. And I love that they decided to make a decision. We're going to take this into our own hands. We're not just going to keep leaving it to this agency to
Yeah.
figure it out for us. We don't understand why we're not getting matched. They're not giving us any answers. And we just feel stuck here. Like we just have to wait for them to like bring, they were tired of it. And so when
Yeah.
they started working with me in the Adoption Success Accelerator program, that's when they found out, oh, we can self match. We
Right.
didn't even know that was an option. And when they chose to self match, then they decided to connect with you, Amanda, because I love working with you. I love sending my
Wow.
families to you. And I think after you helped them with their profile, I think it was what, 2 months maybe
2 months.
from the
Yep.
time they started like sharing their profile that they were matched with an expectant mom. That
Yeah.
is crazy. And Kinsey, to this day, she's like, I'm so shocked. She said 2.5 years of nothing working with
Mm.
an agency, nothing. I've never talked to an expectant mom. To
Yeah.
within 2 months of getting my adoption profile done and sharing it, I connected right with an expectant mom. That is the power of your adoption profile being done correctly.
It
You
is.
guys. Like, I know that it sounds like such a small thing. A lot of families are worried about so many other things they need to do, worried about the money, worried about how I'm going to finance it, and worried about all these things. But there's really only a couple of things that you need to do really well to be able to adopt successfully. And I think that it gets lost in the weeds of should I use an agency or consultant or an attorney or all of these things that
Mhm.
gets lost. So I would say your adoption profile is probably one of the most important things that you need to invest in. And I would say
Yes.
put your money in it, invest in it, because that could be the difference between you spending tens of thousands of dollars on the agency and seeing nothing to actually, matching with an expectant mom. And I know the
Yeah.
goal for most families is to match because everybody's like, how do I match with an expectant mother? Have an amazing adoption profile. That's
Yeah.
your answer.
Yeah. I completely
Yeah.
agree. I think it's really important. I also think it's really important that you have an amazing partner in your adoption journey, which is why I love referring families to you
Yeah.
because you have such a rich experience and history in the adoption field, and you know everything from international foster and all of these other
Yeah.
nuances. And so whenever I have someone that comes to me and they're like, where do I go? How do I get this answer? And I'm like, you need chocolate crease. Like, you've got to talk to her. Like, she is the best person. Like, she's going to walk you through it step by step. And she's
Yeah.
going to be there to answer your questions along the way, which I think is just phenomenal. The service that you do to our entire community is just second to none. It's amazing.
Thank you, Amanda. I so appreciate it. So I want to tell all of you guys watching, okay? Amanda Koval, if you have been stuck with an agency and you're trying to figure out why you're not getting matched, it's been 2 years, 3 years, and you're starting to think, maybe I should try something different. Call Amanda. It's probably your adoption profile and it probably stinks. I hate to break you the news, but the agency probably didn't do it well because
Yeah.
they're not exactly trying to spend all their money trying to make your adoption profile look beautiful, right? A lot of your money goes towards, like you heard from Amanda, putting ads out there for their agency.
Mhm.
And so that's also why it's important for you to know the budget. Like if I pay you $20,000 or whatever, tell me where that money is going. You need to know
Yeah.
that how much of it is being allocated to ads for you versus you actually helping me, placing my profile in front of expected, all of that. You need to know that so
Yeah.
that you're not just, I mean, that's your hard-earned money that you probably spent 5 years saving. You don't want to put that in an agency that just like it just goes down the drain in just a couple of
Mhm.
months. It's just such a waste. And it's a bummer and it stinks, you know. So yeah, I would tell all of you if you're like, you know what, I need my adoption profile, I need work, I need help, I need something, go check out Amanda. She's on Instagram, she's on YouTube. And do you have a Facebook group too? I think you
I
do, right?
do. Yes, it's
Okay.
all under the name My Adoption Coach. So it's super
Yeah.
simple to find any platform.
Yeah, go find her. I mean, she also has a website. So, I mean, really, if you type in Amanda Koval or my adoption coach, you'll be able to find a way to get to connect with her. So, connect with her. Like I said, she's helped my families with their profile, especially Kinsey. I mean, she still is like so in shock. Like her daughter is now 2.5, and she's like, I can't believe she's so like I can't believe it only took 2 months after we worked on our profile to match with our expectant mom. And I'm like, that's the power of having an amazing adoption profile. So I can't say enough great things about Amanda, you guys. So really make sure you check her out and don't complain about how much it costs. That's the other thing I would say, because it costs money to make sure that all
Yes.
these things are done well.
Yeah.
Um, so I do want to say a quick thing about that. I think it's really interesting when it comes to adoption, right? A lot of people are thinking, I need time to save up all of this money so I can adopt. So they're thinking maybe I should save up like $40,000 or something,
Mm.
right? And I think most families, when they're thinking, okay, this number, there's this magic number of 40,000 that I should save up in the bank. Once I have that money, then I'll start my adoption journey.
Right.
The thing with that is like, what I see families do usually with that is the mindset is after that, I'm going to hire an agency, right? And they're not thinking through all of the other logistics of adoption, such as, okay, how do I actually figure out how to walk through the process? Do I maybe need to invest in resources that will help me know what to do? What about all these other pieces that, like the adoption profile? Should I maybe like put money aside for that, right? They're just thinking this one lump sum, like $40,000 will help me adopt. And if it's not going towards a specific adoption professional, they maybe feel like I'm wasting my money. And after almost a decade of doing adoptions, this is what I would say. And I say this to every family. You have got to be willing to invest your money in resources that are going to help you. Just saving up $40,000 or how much ever to work with an agency does not necessarily help you. And this is why so many families are spending so much money. And that's why so many families complain about the cost of adoption. It's not so much because adoption is so costly. I find after almost a decade of doing this, is because a lot of families waste their money on
That's right.
unnecessary things. It really is. I've had clients adopt for $20,000,
Yep.
not because there's a price tag to adoption, but because they knew how to navigate through the process. They knew the most important things they needed to focus on, and they invested in those things. And there was a payoff. So, like Kinsey and Matthew, for example, I don't remember how much they spent with their adoption in Colorado, but then ended up investing in my program, investing in your adoption profile. At the end of the day, they spent less working with both of us than
Hmm.
they did working with this agency for 2.5 years. And
Yeah.
I think just it's hard for people to understand that. Like they're thinking 40,000 for the baby, and then anything else I spend, is that really going to help me get the baby? You know what I mean? Is that gonna help
Right.
me get the
Yeah.
baby? And I think there just needs to be a mindset shift about being wise with your finances, actually, and seeing the money that you are using for your adoption as investments in the right resources that are actually going to help you succeed, not necessarily just, save up the money to work with an agency. I don't think that's a good plan. I
Yeah.
I don't like that plan, and I've just spoken to too many families who made that plan, did that, and just failed miserably. Um, and so I would definitely not recommend that to you guys. But if you guys have any questions, post it below where I can see it. I don't see any questions right now. If you guys have any questions for Amanda, if you have an adoption profile right now, or you're working with an agency and you're thinking like, oh, maybe that's why I'm not getting matched, ask away, because this is your chance to ask Amanda live. Otherwise, her time is not free. So otherwise, if you have questions later, may
There's
have
a
to
couple of
invest some
things.
money.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I'll add when you were talking about like waiting, right? I have a
Yeah.
lot of families, to your point, that will show up and they're like, all right, I'm finally ready to go. And I'm like, there were things that you could have been doing along the way, right? So
Yes.
you can work on your adoption profile
Yes.
before you're ready to go live, right? Before you're
Yes.
ready to like invest in, and have everything together and all your ducks in a row. You can get into Lucrece's program to understand your adoption options, to understand, and start asking those questions that you need to know before you make your decision where you're going, because that could again impact what you're saving. And this like perceived like deadline that you have could actually be a whole lot more attainable than what you're thinking about today.
Yeah.
So again, don't wait all the way until like now I'm finally ready.
Right.
I always love the joke of like you're never ready for anything, right? Like you
Yes.
just need to start taking a step,
Yeah.
understanding, and just okay, well then what's the next thing, and what's the next thing, and
Mhm.
along the way you'll formulate your plan. But if you just keep sitting around for the someday aspect of it, right, then
Right.
that day's just not going to come, friend. And
Yeah.
so I'm a real firm believer in you don't know what you don't know, right? I mean,
Yeah.
listen, again, I love my children dearly, but had to do it over again, I would have done things differently
Yeah.
because I've been around the block and I've learned a lot,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah.
I think that's really sage advice of don't just feel like you've got this $40,000 price tag in your head and you have to hit that before you can do anything else. Just
Yeah.
getting started really makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And to your point on profile reviews, if we have folks that are watching this later on replay,
Mhm.
if you want me to take a look at your profile and just give an honest opinion of whether or not like, hey, I feel like this pretty clear and easy to get to know you or not, just reach out to me on social, DM me, and you can send me the link and I'll take a look at it and give you my honest opinion. It'll be, a simple like voice message back to you of like, hey, I looked at it. Here's my thoughts, right? So it's not going to give you like all the keys and secrets to go and like make all the updates to it.
Yeah.
But I'll give you my opinion of whether or not I feel like it needs work. And I have versions of my program that are super accessible, right? That are
Yeah.
less than $500 so that you can get in and understand the principles and apply to your own profile if you're really true DIY, like super hardcore.
Yeah.
And then I have other, options where I actually create your profile for you with, a graphic designer and a copy editor. And then I actually have a team of birth mothers who review the profiles that we
Oh,
create
wow. That's
as well. I
amazing.
know it's so amazing. And
Wow.
it's really good to get their feedback too,
Yes,
you know?
yes. Guys, how valuable is that? I wish I could see like a show of hands or something. Did you guys hear that? Like, she has a team of birth mothers who review your profile.
Yeah.
Like, where else do you find this? Like, the agency you're working with is not gonna have the birth moms review your profile and tell you whether they like it or not. They just present it to the birth mothers and then
Yeah.
they pick you or they don't pick you. But to have that is invaluable.
Yeah. I'm
To
so
have a birth mom
excited.
be like, "Oh, yeah, I don't really connect with that," or will really help you to know what you need to do to make your adoption profile stand out. So, gosh,
Yeah.
Amanda, I honestly so love the service that you provide because it's so, 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 so needed. But I wanted everybody on my channel to know about you, and hopefully we'll have you on again. I don't know, in the next couple of months and keep talking about the adoption profile, and maybe if people have more questions, we can do just maybe a Q&A or something. But yeah, but it was so good having you on tonight. Thank you so much for being on here. Oh, I wanted to say a quick recap. Can you just do a quick recap of the three things
Sure.
that is going to make your adoption profile stand out?
Absolutely. The very first thing is you've got to tell a clear story. You've got to make it super duper easy for people to get to know who you are as a family. The second is you've got to make an emotional connection. You've got to paint a real picture of what life is like in your family so that it makes it easy for her to really immerse herself in the experiences of your family so that she can see whether or not that's the life that she wants for her family or for her child. And then the third is you have got to take consistent action and share your profile. If you're not sharing your profile, even if you're working with an agency, and especially if you're self matching, you're just not going to ultimately achieve your goal of adopting a child. So,
Mhm.
those are the three secrets to really creating an adoption profile that's going to help you stand out.
Yeah.
And in my clients, it helps them bring home their baby in less than a year.
Yeah. Oh, it's so amazing. I mean, that's what every family dreams of. They're like, I want to, by the time I start the adoption process, I just want it to be a couple of months and baby comes home. Nobody wants to wait
Right.
2, 3.5 years. And it should not take that long. It really shouldn't. I
Mhm.
mean, that's just that timeline is because so many families make so many mistakes along the way. And so they think that it's just normal for everybody to be waiting for 2.5, 3 years. No, it's not normal.
It's
You've just
not.
made a lot of mistakes
That's it.
along the way.
They just
Um,
cost you a lot of money, is what
it
they did.
cost you a lot of money, right? I mean, it
Yeah.
was you lost thousands of dollars and a lot of time
Yeah.
because you just didn't know. And so, I just really am advocating for families to just know how to make this process easier because this is why. Because there are so many children who need homes,
Mhm.
so many of them. And for you to be equipped to know what to do makes the process quicker and makes the match quicker, right? So that
Yeah.
the children can come home faster. When we talked
Right.
about foster care adoption, it's the same thing. These children have been waiting in foster care for so long. The quicker you can go through the process, the quicker this child can come home. And
Right.
so when we can remove these barriers for you and help you see, like, the way to actually move forward, it's reducing the time that you've heard it usually takes and it's making it just, you know, so easier, so much easier for you. So Juliana, she has a comment here. She's speaking about how an agency is a big no-no for us. Yeah, agencies are not for everybody, Juliana. And unfortunately, like I said, most families choose an agency because they see all the ads and they think an agency is the only way to adopt, and they
Yeah.
start spending their money there. And unfortunately, sometimes they find out that that maybe was not the best option for them. So I think for so many families who just, when you get to that place, like where Juliana, you are right now, you have to make a decision, right? I
Mhm.
mean, you have to grieve the loss of the years and the thousands of dollars that you spend that you're not going to get back. And now you have to make a decision. Do I really still want to move forward with growing my family through adoption? And am I willing to suck it up, like the losses, and move forward? Or am I done, right? Only
Yeah.
you can make that decision. But you have to understand that moving forward, you're going to have to invest more money. I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things that people just don't want to hear. They're like, well, I've already spent all this money, but it's gone and it wasn't in the right place. And so if you want to move forward now that you know these resources that are going to help you, now you have to decide, am I going to invest in these resources or do I just want to stay where I'm at? Right?
Yeah.
So Juliana, that's what I would say. It stinks because you just didn't know. You knew what you knew at then. But now
Right.
that you know different, now you have to decide, is it worth it for us to continue and keep investing now that we see that we have different resources, or do we just not want to move forward anymore? But nobody can really make that decision for you. You know,
Yeah.
Amanda, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I would say, there are some good agencies out there for
Mhm.
sure, but not all agencies are good.
Yeah,
And not is self-matching not necessarily always the solution for everyone, right?
exactly.
I've had a lot of folks they'll show up to a conversation, one-on-one conversation with me, and they'll say, I am so busy. I don't have the time to create my profile or share my profile myself. And I don't really want to do that. And I'm like, great. Well, then self-matching is not for you. You need to go work with an agency.
Yeah.
And there is a very, very limited, maybe, less than two handfuls of agencies across the US that I do recommend to partner with
Mhm.
just based upon my own research with them
Yeah.
and such. But not all agencies are created the same, and
They're
so
not.
you have to.
Absolutely.
The average family doesn't know that when they're starting the journey. They just
Exactly.
don't, right?
Right.
They are they and no. In my case, we were so ready to be parents I was willing to do whatever it took, jump through whatever hoop,
Yeah.
right? And I didn't want to be the difficult family. I didn't want to be the family that asked the thousand questions that are floating in my brain,
Yeah.
because that I was afraid I would be labeled as hard to work with, right?
Yeah.
And that, often that really, I personally believe it led to our disruption that we had right off the
Mhm.
bat, because
Wow.
we weren't informed about how Native American law works when adopting
Wow.
a child and things of that
Okay.
nature. But I was just over the moon. We'd been picked and we were super excited and
Yeah.
let's go. And so it's really hard to make that decision, but it really comes down to what actions are you willing to take? And
Right.
then based upon that, finding the right partner,
Yeah.
and being willing to ask the tough questions. But because we willing to ask the tough questions is going to save you emotional wear and tear, financial wear and tear, years on your journey,
Yeah.
and not being afraid to be labeled as the difficult one, right? Asking
Right.
all the questions.
Right. Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, you're so right on. But Juliana, I think she's posting on Facebook. It looks like she said money is no problem for us. Well, that's great, Juliana. If no, money is no problem for you, then I guess it's just up to you to decide what
Yeah,
resource you want to use now moving forward. Okay.
yeah.
So I think she was actually in my boot camp that I did 2 weeks ago now. Yeah, 2 weeks
Okay.
ago. So yeah, I mean, Juliana, I would obviously invite you again to join my Adoption Success Accelerator program to really take the time over the next couple of months to learn about the process and how it works before you jump into any other professionals or however you choose to move forward, because there's so much that most families don't know when they get started, that I always tell families, just pause where you are and just take the time to actually learn. Just be a student for just a couple of months and really understand all the things that you need to know to make the best decisions for you so that you don't keep making the same mistakes, you know?
Yeah.
Um, okay, I don't have anybody else asking questions here.
Okay.
So,
Well, again, I'm available on social. If anybody has
yeah.
questions after they, watch the replay of this, feel free to reach out to me anytime.
Yeah, yeah. So before we kind of close the live, I just want to invite all of you guys watching. If you know that adoption is the right path for your family and you are serious about growing your family this year, that you're not at the place where you're thinking, oh, I don't know, maybe I want to adopt, maybe I want to do IVF. No, if you're serious, you've decided adoption is the route that I want to grow my family and I want to start investing in that path. I want to invite you to join my Adoption Success Accelerator. I'm going to put a link in the YouTube somewhere where you can actually go watch my free training. And through the free training, it kind of gives you an overview of the program and what it all entails. And from there, you can go ahead and sign up if that's something that you're interested in. But I want to invite you guys to join so that you can learn everything that you need to know to just navigate this process well, smoothly, and
Mhm.
save thousands of dollars and years in the process. And as you're going through the program, if you decide self-matching is what I want, or you decide to work with, a professional, but you need an adoption profile, talk to Amanda. She's another amazing resource for you. She will help you get your profile up and ready, looking beautiful and amazing, where you can make an emotional connection with the adoptive mom. So I'm sorry, the birth mom, the expectant mother. So I want to encourage you guys to utilize these resources that are available to you. And that's it for tonight, guys. I will see you in the live next week. Thank you so much for, all of you being on here, and I'll see you in the next live. All
Thanks,
right.
guys.
Bye.